This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello there, welcome to this edition of Global Business Africa. In the course of the hour, we'll run through all the business news stories you need to know about from Africa and beyond. Let's start with a run through the markets here for you. So let's start with the NSE in Kenya, down about 0.2% at the end of the week. September, absolutely horrible month for the JSE. And the first week of October, not really that different. This is the third weekly decline we're seeing in the top 40. It's shed over 2.4% today. MTN, though, did post the biggest gains for the session, up nearly 4%. Year-to-date gains on that one counter, nearly 8%. The EGX 30, not trading today, obviously doesn't trade on a Friday, but it had a decent outing this week. It closed 2.6% higher. We'll be talking about the latest changes in energy pricing policies in Egypt and the latest talks for a new program of the IMF in just a moment. Here's what's coming up tonight. Egypt cuts fuel prices after years of increases. We'll explore why. We'll also be looking at some of the gains made so far ever since China banned trade in ivory. And we'll bring you the story of a man in Nigeria who's built a business recycling garbage from dump sites. But our starting point tonight is Africa's most industrialized economy, South Africa, where the Nigerian president, Muhammadu Buhari, has condemned the recent wave of xenophobic attacks. He described them as an embarrassment to Africa. Mr. Buhari told a town hall meeting of Nigerians in South Africa that the attacks were a shock to him, but also to the entire continent too. The Nigerian president is on a 3-day state visit to South Africa, where he met his counterpart, President Cyril Ramaphosa. The two leaders regretted the violence and the subsequent retaliation in Nigeria against South African enterprises. The two presidents pledged to deepen trade ties between the two African economic giants. Just last month, fresh outbursts of violence against foreigners, particularly African foreigners, erupted in parts of Pretoria and Johannesburg, leaving at least a dozen people dead. On to North Africa now. The Egyptian government has cut domestic fuel prices for the first time in decades. Now, the cuts follow several rounds of price hikes in recent years as part of an austerity program, an economic reform program, I should point out, agreed to with the International Monetary Fund. They also come in light of a decline in the price of Brent crude on the international market. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has the latest.
The fuel price cuts are a result of the new pricing system adopted for the first time by the government.
The mechanism allows prices to increase or decrease by 10% every 3 months. Calculation is based first on the price of the international Brent oil in addition to the cost of production as well as the dollar value in Egypt. The government saw a weakening of the dollar against the Egyptian pound lately and the fall in the Brent oil prices internationally to $59 a barrel. It has therefore reduced fuel prices by £0.25 per litre.
To cut its budget deficit, the government had been gradually slashing subsidies on fuel over the last 5 years. Fuel prices have more than doubled during that period. Therefore, any price cuts is welcomed by Egyptians.
This is good. He is the first president to reduce fuel prices. It has never happened before. That's better for us.
It's good that prices dropped. I was hoping it will drop more like £1 per litre. Nevertheless, it's good though.
The government says the money saved from the fuel subsidy cuts have been triggered towards social welfare programs.
The subsidies on fuel have fallen significantly. It was £110 billion 2 years ago. It dropped to £89 billion in the 2018 to 2019 fiscal year and now has dropped by another £39 billion to reach 59 billion Egyptian pounds of subsidies.
The next fuel price evaluation is expected in December. It's the first time that Egyptians witnessed a reduction in fuel prices. Though minimal, it's an encouraging sign that Egyptians will begin to feel the rewards of the latest austerity measures. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And CGTN's Yasser Hakim is live in Cairo with more details on this particular story. So, Yasser, walk us through the pricing, the details of this pricing formula that's being applied here. Does it For instance, take a rolling average of Brent crude or Moban crude and then add a margin and then use that as a reference point for retail prices. How does it work?
Yes, Ramah, it's based on three different calculations. First of all, like you said, the average price of Brent crude in the 3 months. And the first month that has been calculated is July. So we're talking July, August, and September, taking the average price during that period. And then you have the second formula is the exchange rate between the Egyptian pound and the dollar, because the fuel is being imported. Most of it is being imported at a dollar rate. So what is the exchange rate to determine the price? And then you have also the cost of import and distribution. This is also put into the calculation. You bring the three together and you make up the final price. And every 3 months you reassess this price. And it does not exceed 10% up or down. So to avoid any instability in the market, they have capped it by 10% of increase in the price or 10% of reduction in the price. Now, from July to September, we've seen lower prices of oil, Brent, during those 3 months. It has dropped. We've seen a stronger Egyptian pound, which has been faring very well against the US dollar in the last few months, and therefore the cost of importing has been less, and obviously the cost of distribution also and production has been less, and therefore putting the three together, the government decided that the price for October would be dropped by around 3 to 5%, depending on which fuel you have, because in Egypt you have three types of fuel, 80, 90 and 95 octane, and each have a different price, but all of them have dropped by 25 piastres to the litre.
Indeed. So speaking of the IMF, though, we understand Egypt is keen on another IMF program. The current 3-year, $12 billion one ends next month. So with this new program, assuming Egypt does get it, what's the value addition here? Why go for a new program with the IMF?
Yeah, first of all, this new program is non-financial. There is no loan like the one before. We've seen the $12 billion loan that was paid up over 3 years. And that's a different issue. The government decided that it wants to continue its reform program with the IMF, but putting in some kind of cooperation without receiving any loans. It's mainly to continue the reform program together. IMF would be supervising and giving its input on Egypt's reforms in the next 3 years. The government sees this as a sort of, it gives credibility to Egypt's economic reform program. It gives confidence to the foreign investors and governments and donor countries and institutions that the economic reforms are continuing according to the international standards, according to the IMF agreement, and this helps when Egypt is looking for more bonds, is issuing bonds, is trying to attract foreign investments, is trying to open the market for businesses from abroad, or tapping the bond market and so forth. So it gives it more leverage when you have the IMF behind you, giving you support internationally. So it's more of a technical assistance rather than a loan agreement like before.
Indeed. We'll see how this plays out. Thank you for the update. That's GTN's Yasser Kim there live in Cairo. All right, then, some corporate headlines. Let's start in Nigeria. The central bank over there has fined 12 commercial banks an estimated $1.3 billion because they apparently did not meet its minimum loan-to-deposit ratio requirement, at least by the end of the third quarter. The target ratio is 60%. The CBN, back in July, asked lenders to maintain that ratio by the end of Q3. Now, the move was part of measures aimed at getting credit flowing through the Nigerian economy yet again. But lending in Africa's largest economy is still pretty sluggish. Here in Kenya, the government has landed a $229 million loan from the African Development Bank. The debt is supposed to help with the expansion of a highway that links the major economic hubs in the East African nation. The 5-year project will convert the 84-kilometer-long Kenol-Sagana-Marua Road in central and eastern Kenya from a two-way single carriageway into a dual bypass. Now, the road is part of the Trans-African Highway, commonly known, of course, as the Cape to Cairo. In South Africa, the embattled public broadcaster SABC said to receive about $138 million in a government bailout. The bailout is part of an initial tranche, or totaling about $211 million. The remaining amount, $73 million, will be transferred to the SABC once it meets the remaining outstanding conditions, 3 of them that have been set by the National Treasury. And finally, the US government, along with Australia and the UK, have asked Facebook to delay adding encryption to its messaging services. The countries argue that encryption of this sort hinders the fight against child abuse and terrorism unless law enforcement officials are granted access through a backdoor. Facebook's WhatsApp platform already uses so-called end-to-end encryption, which locks up messages to some extent. But now Facebook says it will extend that kind of protection to other platforms, including Messenger and Instagram. That's a run through your company headlines. You're watching Global Business Africa. Time for a short break. Here's what's coming up next. We'll explore why Ugandan authorities are warning their citizens against trading in cryptocurrencies. And we'll also take a look at the women who are aiming to cause quite the upset in Africa's motor industry. Their stories coming up next.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay, we'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sutra Nairobi. Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and Global Business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back to the program. Let's head over to Uganda. It's among the continent's largest coffee producers, but this story isn't about that. It's about something else. Cryptocurrencies. Authorities over there are warning their citizens against using any of them. As CGTN's Michael Baleke explains, the government's warnings point to most cryptocurrencies, including the most prevalent ones, not being regulated.
Uganda says it does not recognize any cryptocurrency as legal tender. No organization has been licensed in the country to facilitate trade in cryptocurrencies.
The public is advised to appraise themselves of the risks associated with this animal called cryptocurrencies and exercise caution before they make transactions involving such products.
Cryptocurrencies are internet-based and not bound by geography. All the transactions are stored in an online database not regulated by the government. According to the Bank of Uganda, digital currencies are not backed by the central bank and carry significant risk of loss of people's savings with no option for protection or insurance.
Money has its own unique place, and as a central bank, we do not believe that cryptocurrency meets the characteristics that a currency should have.
Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum have become widely used, prompting more national and regional authorities to grapple with their regulation. Authorities here fear cryptocurrencies may create opportunities for illegal activities such as money laundering and terrorism. Regulatory bodies like Bank of Uganda are still trying to make sense of these new emerging technologies. But experts in the digital exchanges say if well regulated, cryptocurrencies can generate business opportunities. They can shape policy, spark innovation, and even create jobs. Promoters of digital technologies want the government to quickly come up with laws to consider new innovations.
Their schemes in town are mostly Ponzi schemes, are mostly pyramid schemes. And these are the ones that are disguising and hiding behind the pretense of these things called cryptocurrencies, and that is wrong. So there are several investment opportunities in cryptocurrencies. There are even cryptocurrencies that are used for transactions, meaning that is pegged to an asset, something, for instance, pegged to the Uganda shilling, and someone can use that for transaction.
Social media platform Facebook recently announced the Libra, a new cryptocurrency targeting its 2 billion users around the world, which the company intends to launch next year. The Ugandan government, however, says it has assembled a team of experts to study and look into all emerging technologies, including cryptocurrencies, with a view of formalizing their use. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Let's turn to fashion now. More and more companies, more players in that sector, choosing environmentally friendly ways to do their business. So, for instance, Stella McCartney's recent Fashion Week collection included raffia bags made by female artisans in Madagascar out of materials from communities who are fighting a desperate battle against deforestation. But Madagascar is not necessarily a fashion hub. But that is an opportunity for Sitraka Rakoto, an up-and-coming designer, who's hoping to transform the local fashion industry and get more people to buy locally designed and produced clothing. CGTN's Alexander Majala has that story.
Madagascar is not known for its haute couture, but thanks to the work of a designer, Sitraka Rakoto, in the capital Antananarivo, the nation's fledgling fashion industry has been gathering interest. The 35-year-old only launched her fashion line, Sirakut, 2 years ago. But her intricate embroidery and colorful illustrations have already attracted attention as far and wide as the US and Asia. Rakoto says she draws inspiration from her environment and what goes on in the country.
These forests can feel pain when they're being burnt. They feel pain when they're being cut down. And all of that touches me deeply, and it becomes my source of inspiration.
But Rakoto says the fashion industry here still has a long way to go. About 80% of the Malagasy population lives on less than $2 a day. Aside from low consumer buying power, Madagascar has also been hit with an influx of cheap, fashionable Chinese clothes.
This outfit cost 38,000 ariary, which is around $10, right? I have already reduced the price down by 50%. It's a really good material. It's cotton and is soft to the touch, but I'm struggling to sell it because people prefer Chinese products.
Rakoto mainly sells her designs to international clients through social media platforms such as Facebook. But recently, she opened a retail store in the capital, Antananarivo. To raise the country's fashion profile, Rakoto recently participated in a fair that brought together stakeholders from different industries in Madagascar. She showcased her latest collection named Gasi Tsara, meaning beautiful, in the local Malagasy language.
This time around, I want to invite people to travel, and in that sense, it took a social aspect, because people in Madagascar don't have the opportunity to travel.
Everything is beautiful, even if I did not have the intention of buying anything, but it makes me want to buy it, especially since it's on sale.
Rakoto hopes to change the way Malagasys think about fashion and influence them to go to local designers as a first option before buying imported garments. Alexandria Majala for CGTN.
Now, Africa is also making inroads into the car manufacturing sector, and a new South African company is one of the latest entrants. It's called Moreza. It's a startup part owned by women, and it's partnered with an Iranian car manufacturer as it looks to make its market debut. With the details, here's CGTN's Angelo Coppola.
Zimbabwean entrepreneur Tedenda Mugofa started Moreza with his female business partners from neighboring South Africa. He's now a step closer to a lifelong dream of building affordable vehicles suited to Africa's tough terrain.
So connectivity when you're driving is quite limited. So you need cars that are tailor-made for such a terrain. Then also there's an issue of climate. Africa has got maybe 3-4 different climates, from Western Africa to Southern Africa, and that also bears much weight on a vehicle.
The first prototype was built with the help of Iranian manufacturer SAIPA. They are now awaiting safety clearance to go into full-scale production.
We have invested upwards of $1 million to get product as a prototype, to build a system that contributes to the value chain of actual production of the vehicle. The partner that we have, they have got over 54 years experience in the automotive industry. They have helped brands like Peugeot, Hyundai, Kia, who are some of the leading brands.
We are planning to start manufacturing in the first quarter of 2020. And we are projecting to employ at least 500 people and start manufacturing at least 35 vehicles per day.
The crossover hatch will cost around $10,000. It will be the first of 5 models destined primarily for the Southern African market.
It is daunting and exciting at the same time, and especially because we are young, and there's also other manufacturers that have been doing this for many years. But it's very exciting that we can bring a new chapter into the African entrepreneurship space.
Moreza joins a highly competitive South African market, which produces over 600,000 vehicles a year. The company, though, is optimistic that it will fare well. But Moreza will first have to gain the trust of brand-loyal African consumers. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
On to Cote d'Ivoire now, where one female architect is making her mark on Abidjan's skyline. From banks to public and private projects, this architect has built them all.
Essane Angèle Belgré hops into her car and heads to her latest construction site. The Abidjan skyline is dotted with a number of the architect's projects. Today, she's inspecting a new office building.
On these projects, I'm working on an office space. We all know that most workers spend 8 to 12 hours in their office. So when an office is poorly designed, you end up with people who are in poor working conditions, and this can impact their health.
Essane runs her own firm where she looks to grow the next generation of young architects.
With her honesty, it's going well. As soon as there's a concern, we talk about it and we find solutions quickly. Often it's even her who makes us do some research, find out what's wrong and come back to her to correct our mistakes. And it makes us grow.
She also promotes dealing with rapid urbanization in a sustainable manner.
Ce qui m'intéresse le plus, c'est la fonctionnalité.
What interests me most is the functionality. They're all spaces that I create are functional so that the owner and the users are comfortable. So I like working with raw materials, raw concrete, wood and noble materials. The spaces and decoration are a result of this functionality. Everything should be coherent from start to end. I can say that's what makes me unique.
With the number of urban dwellers set to increase, Isan is sure to have more functional and beautiful spaces to create. Astatal, CGTN.
Now, all of this week, China has been celebrating 70 years of the People's Republic. A recent government white paper on gender equality over that period of time points to some interesting strides made in empowering women over the last 7 decades. According to the State Council Information Office, the founding of the People's Republic back in 1949 ushered in a new era for women, changing their social status from being an oppressed group to masters of their own fate. CGTN's Lindy Mtungana shows us how policies over those decades affected 3 generations of one family.
The China of today is a far cry from the China of 70 years ago, when the nation offered women little in the way of rights and opportunities. She remembers it well.
There was no gender equality in the 1940s. Men had a higher social status and women a lower one. In my day, it was rare to see girls go to school. Most of the parents let boys go to school while girls stayed home to do the housework.
Sustained efforts to improve the lives of women through favorable reforms and progressive policies led to historic changes. According to a recent government white paper on equality, the illiteracy rate among females dropped from 90% in 1949 to 7.3% in 2017. And there were 340 million women in the labor force, doubling the figure from 1978. For Sha Ruting, China's reform and opening up in 1978 brought with it a world of new opportunities. The doors of learning were fully opened to all, and China's first generation of female professionals rose to the fore.
We were brought up to believe that women hold up half of the sky. Among the women around me were women doctors, professors, engineers. It was natural for us to see women do the same work as men.
But it's really young Yiqi who has reaped the most rewards. A first-year university student, Yang knows how much better her life is when compared to the generations that have come before her.
Yeah, I think I have more power to make my own choices. I'm more independent.
Despite the gains made, experts say more work remains. Women's representation in politics has steadily increased, but China's Communist Party has yet to see a woman serve on the Politburo Standing Committee. For Yang Yiqi, the challenges are more subtle and call for the much harder work of changing perceptions.
When we are at school, it's generally believed that boys do better than girls in math, physics, or other science. And when talking about marriage, people will think girls should get married before 30 or they will become the leftover woman. But if a man is nearly 30, people may think, oh, he still needs some time to strive for his own career and he can get married later.
There is a quiet confidence about Yang and the young women of her generation that points to a bright future.
The girls of my generation, they are more brave. They are willing to show their power. They are willing to speak their own voices.
Chairman Mao once famously said that women hold up half the sky. Well, his words certainly ring true today. A new generation of women in China are fearlessly shaping their own futures and in the process playing their part in the nation's next wave of transformation. Lindy Mtongana, CGTN, Shanghai, China.
It's 18:30 GMT, time for a short break. Here's what's coming up next. We'll look at some of the gains made so far since China banned trade in ivory. And we'll also be telling you why lines of code are going to be putting me out of a job, hopefully in the next decade. All that and more is coming up shortly.
Business in Africa is at a crossroads.
we celebrate those who are adopting and thriving despite the challenges, from grassroots to big businesses. Global Business takes you along for the ride as we track the making of a giant. Only on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back to the program. Let's recap the stories making your headlines at this hour. Starting in Ethiopia, at least 20 people have been killed in clashes there between security forces and a minority ethnic group in the northern Amhara state. Violence erupted on Friday when armed people killed 10 people in an ambush on a minibus which was traveling to Gondar in northern Amhara. This is the latest headache for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali, whose reforms have touched off quite a series of protests from ethnic groups who are calling for the formation of their own provinces. The government of Mali says at least 38 soldiers are now known to have been killed in an attack by jihadists on 2 military camps earlier this week on Monday. Now, the attacks in the town of Bokessi and Mondoro took place near the border with Burkina Faso. 33 of the missing soldiers were found alive. 8 of them are receiving treatment in hospital. This is the deadliest attack on Malian security forces so far this year. Officials have declared 3 days of mourning. In South Africa, the latest data from Stats SA shows that housebreaking is the #1 crime in the country. The survey is part of a much larger 3-year study that looked at people's experiences of crime in the 2017-2018 fiscal year. And finally, your survival and success in life is largely dependent on 2 factors you can't control: where you were born and your gender. That's according to the latest report by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The report says girls face a lot more challenges in life, particularly in developing countries, compared to boys. However, in general, the report doesn't paint a rosy picture for all children across Africa. That's a run through your headlines. Right then, news further afield now. A large group of rioters continues to damage public properties and buildings in Kowloon in Hong Kong Island and the New Territories as well. They've also damaged shops, occupied major roads, and have set fire at various MTR stations and damaged facilities and ATM machines too. Some of them attacked police officers by throwing petrol bombs, Molotov cocktails if you will, and attempted to take away a police pistol that had been dropped on the ground. Hong Kong police say an undercover officer fired a live round as he was under attack. The police officer lost his pistol magazine during that particular attack. Police officers are warning all rioters to stop their acts and to leave immediately. They also appeal to all members of the public to stay in safe places. In the meantime, a court in Hong Kong has declined to suspend the newly enacted anti-mask law. On to mainland China now. It's long been one of the world's biggest markets for ivory, but as of 2018, all trade in ivory and ivory products in the country is illegal. Now, the move is being hailed as a major development as part of efforts to protect the world's elephant population. As the economy boomed, the ivory trade in China contributed to the large-scale and swift decimation of elephant herds through poaching elsewhere on the planet. The country's overall ban on ivory trading started on the first day of 2018. After the ban, there was a 65% decline in the price of raw ivory over the past year, and there's also been an 80% decline in the seizure of ivory coming into China. Around 200 factories and shops that were dealing in ivory were shut down because of the ban. Celebrities, including the basketball star Yao Ming, have fronted anti-ivory campaigns in China. Now, still on the ivory trade, Japan is also home to the world's largest market for ivory. Ivory is mainly used to carve traditional seals that are used to stamp contracts and other documents as an alternative to a signature. But officials in Japan have recently tightened restrictions on the country's ivory trade as elephant herds across Africa continue to be decimated. Mayu Yoshida filed this report.
Right under Tokyo's famous Shibuya crossing is this small underground shop that makes personalized traditional seals. Inside, Hideki Arami designs and carves these seals, known in Japanese as hanko stamps. He is a master craftsman and a third-generation carver. He works with wood, buffalo horns, and even plastic. But ivory is the material of choice to create high-quality seals.
The best ivory for carving hanko comes from the center of the elephant tusk, where the ivory is fine-crafted and firm. In contrast, buffalo horns are moist, and so it's very difficult to carve.
Rami says he gets steady demand for ivory-made stamps. Out of the roughly 70 orders he receives each month, 4 are for ivory.
Ivory is the best material to produce hankos, but I don't get as many orders of ivory hankos anymore, especially not from the younger generation.
You can buy ready-made hankos for about $1 almost anywhere, but most people in Japan own at least one custom handcrafted hankos made of expensive materials. They're used to stamp official documents like marriage certificates and bank applications. That's why Japan is still hungry for ivory, making it the world's largest legal ivory market. In 2017, China banned its domestic ivory trade, and pressure is mounting on Japan to follow suit. In fact, the Japanese government tightened regulations earlier this year. For instance, carbon dating is now used to prevent illegal elephant tusks from entering the market. But activists say there are still loopholes that contribute to the illegal hunting and smuggling of elephants.
The first loophole is only whole tusks are regulated by the registration scheme. As you said, if those tusks are cutted, they can exempt the regulation.
Surprisingly, many hanko carvers like Mr. Arami are in favor of shutting down the ivory market.
So if the country runs out of its tusk stockpile, so be it. It won't severely affect my business anyway.
Traditionalists may still seek out hankos made of ivory, but unless the government tightens loopholes, the fight to stamp out the illegal ivory trade will continue. Mayu Yoshida, CGTN, Tokyo.
Nearly a fortnight has passed since the official opening of the Daxing International Airport in Beijing. Now, the airport is designed to handle at least 100 million passengers a year, and it's still adapting, transitioning, as it were, to its planned role as a key, if not the primary air hub in that region. That, however, isn't stopping people from finding it to be quite the tourist attraction.
It's spacious, it's classy, and there's no need for a ticket. During the Golden Week holiday, people are looking for new destinations to spend a long holiday. Beijing's futuristic new mega hub is giving them just what they need. Having just gone into operation last month, Beijing Daxing International Airport isn't quite yet in full swing. But that hasn't stopped visitors from turning the house and the perimeters into tourist hotspots. Visitors have been amazed by the variety of food and shopping options and are pleased to see prices are not as high as expected. People have commented online about how clean and comfortable the bathrooms are. While the airport's designed facilities are sources of enjoyment, it's the high-tech that provides a big first impression. Almost all the ground personnel wear these sci-fi-like gadgets that can access passenger information via face scans. There's also creative use of technology, such as interactive paintings, and these flower-like devices bloom to the rhythm of music. The tourist presence is giving airport managers some headaches. According to police, some tourists stop their cars on the driveway near the airport to take photos and walk around, which put them at the risk of the accidents. Someone even did a live broadcast with their phone amid the bustling traffic. But the airport was designed for high efficiency, which should help staff keep things orderly.
All that time, one of the underlying important aspects of the optimization was to keep the building as compact as possible, so you reduce the walking length, you reduce the distance between the runways, which means the aircraft that are arriving or leaving, they take less time to go from the gate to the runway.
Beijing's second international air hub will likely be attracting high numbers of visitors for a long time to come. It was recently named by UK newspaper The Guardian as one of the world's new 7 wonders. Wang Suwen, CGTN.
So then, machine learning is getting better and better every day. And this next story hits pretty close. You're already probably used to talking to Siri or Alexa or the Google Assistants. But here's the thing. How about replacing me entirely and all the support people behind this production with lines of code? I'm talking about virtual avatars reading the news without the need for people like me. They won't call in sick. They're ready to go just about any time. You don't need makeup. Hell, you don't even need any of this. The studios, throw it all out. As the tech improves and becomes more available, it's likely you'll be seeing more of these avatars and a lot less of people like me.
At the opening ceremony of the 3rd China Online Literature Plus conference in Beijing, one of China's major tech companies, Sogou, had prepared a surprise for the audience. An announcement delivered by an artificial intelligence avatar called Yanni wowed the crowd with its lifelike computer-generated image and realistic voice. The result even impressed Li Yanni, the conference's host and model for the avatar.
The first time I saw a video of her, I was shocked because she looked so much like me. But she was saying things that I'd never said before. Her facial expressions and some of her gestures also resembled my own.
During the conference, Sogou signed strategic agreements with Xinhua's new media center, the video platform Migu Video, and the e-book company Zhangyue. Sogou believes that its AI technology has the potential to revolutionize the culture and entertainment industry by creating products that are better suited for the needs of internet users in the age of 5G. Zhangyue, an online reading platform with nearly 120 million active monthly users and several tens of thousands of titles in its database, sees great potential for the technology. Under its cooperation with Sogou, the company plans to release AI avatars of 2 well-known Chinese online novelists, Yue Guan and Bu Xinqian. With avatars in place, audiobooks can be produced much faster, saving the authors considerable time in the recording studio and reducing cost for the company.
More advanced technology is bound to push our industry forward. I think that the IT industry as a whole is increasingly moving towards artificial intelligence. Sogou has the biggest keyboard input service in China, so they have a big advantage in the form of a huge amount of data on text-based language use.
Sogou's technology has already been successfully put to use in the media and legal industries, where it's helping professionals complete certain menial tasks, leaving humans with more time to complete more challenging jobs.
Now, our species' obsession with being youthful, living forever, that sort of thing, has led us to all kinds of interesting discoveries. In Thailand, it seems that the fountain of youth, if you want to call it that, can be found in snail extracts, which research claims can rejuvenate human skin cells. Now, an unlikely craze for snail-based skin products is a windfall for Thai farmers, who are part of an industry valued at over $300 million for now. Our correspondent Dusita Saukyu reports.
A few years ago, this province in central Thailand was known for its rice farms. Today, a new industry has cropped up, feeding a global market that is well worth over $300 million. It's an ironic twist of fate. What was once the bane of farmers' existence, pests they desperately tried to rid themselves of, has become the golden ticket, literally. Worth more than its weight in gold, snail slime has become a hot commodity in the global beauty world. And in this province alone, more than 80 snail farms have sprung up over the past 3 years in response to this growing trend.
The rising demand of snail products is being reflected in Thailand's snail farming industry. Next year, we will increase to 1,000 farms, which is great for farmers in the country.
Gitpong Puttarat Duwanan founded Aiden International as a business-savvy solution to the snail infestation in this province. As the sole snail slime producer in Thailand, his bet paid off. He sells the serum under Archer brand, but also supplies Korean, Chinese and American cosmetic companies with dried powder form.
From recent research, we found that snails have a lot of important substances in their mucus that we didn't know about before, so we can apply this to anti-aging products and for medicine.
This farm has around 2,000 giant African snails roaming freely in this 64 square meter enclosure that mimics their natural habitat. Each snail produces 1 cc of slime in 1 minute. They are milked once every month to ensure they are stress-free, because the happier the snail, the higher quality of slime they will produce. The process of harvesting the slime is seen as humane, involving dripping water over the snail to encourage them to secrete its nutrient-rich mucin. This mucin is a superhero ingredient for snail slime beauty products that are flying off shelves, with the promise that the secretions can stimulate collagen production, slow the onset of wrinkles and heal scars.
From our tests, we found that it can help produce the new skin cells and more collagen. Moreover, the melanin content will be reduced as well, so it helps to rejuvenate and brighten skin.
But beyond all the perceived weirdness of snail slime and questions of whether any specific beauty product truly holds the key to ageless or perfect skin, one thing remains clear. It seems nothing is a step too far when it comes to humanity's quest for eternal youth. And these snails are having a moment. Lucita Saogao, CGTN, Nakhon Nayok, Thailand.
All right, then a quick run through commodity prices. We spoke about Brent crude a little earlier on in the bulletin. We talked about Egypt cutting prices, so there we are at the moment. 58.69 is the relevant price for now. But let's focus on Nigeria. The oil minister says the country will comply with its production quota within OPEC. That's about 1.77 million barrels of output per day. But we're seeing mixed signals coming out of Africa's biggest oil producer. The quota essentially means that output would remain roughly where it is now. But the 2020 budget has an output assumption of 2.18 million barrels a day. So which one is actually going to stick to? Is Nigeria going to stick to rather? 2.18 or 1.77? We'll find out. Here's what's coming up next. Still in Nigeria, we'll introduce you to a Nigerian national who's built a business built on recycling.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Welcome back to the program. Now, scavengers are a relatively common sight across many cities in Africa, and unknown to some of them, they're actually helping in some ways to deal with climate change. In Nigeria, scavengers play an important role in the process of waste recycling. They scour dump sites in search of materials and then sell them on to different recycling companies. In this next report, Deji Badmus details the story of a Nigerian man whose paper recycling business has gone from just waste sorting to providing employment on grassroots tonight.
With trash littered all around, dump sites do not look attractive in any way. But for the young men you see here, they're standing on a gold mine. With their bare hands, they dig in, sorting out paper materials and cartons in the midst of many waste. One after the other, the heap is lifted by 2 or more people to a measuring scale. Usman was properly trained to do this, and he's invested 14 years of his life to learn about the hidden treasures and waste before setting out on his own.
When I see young paper, I also sell cartons, copper wire, iron, brass, aluminium, and so on. Sometimes we get contracts from companies to supply some items, and they come buy it.
Paper recycling business, he says, doesn't yield a lot of money, but it helps in fulfilling his utmost desire of fending for his parents and siblings.
I used to move around to pick papers and orders, but now I buy from scavengers that I have trained. They move around picking up papers and other items around the town, and when they return, I buy everything from them. My family are not living okay, but I usually support them with money from upkeep, and that comes from this business.
With only a secondary school education, Usman has managed to employ over 50 youths in his paper scavenging business. Many of them, just like him, entered the business for economic reasons.
We feed ourselves and our families from the proceeds of this business, and we thank God we are making progress. As for me, I plan to leave this job when I grow older and use the money I make to set up my own enterprise.
Dealers often travel different parts of the country to buy off the materials from them and then sell to companies who convert them into commercially viable products.
Before, cartons were not selling, but they are now selling. Nylon, bags, and broken tiles were not selling, but now they are all selling. Buyers come all the way from China to buy these from us for recycling. They come down to Nigeria to do business with us.
It may not be an enviable job and quite risky, but has been their source of sustenance for many years. And more of these young people continue to troop into it every now and then. For them, this is about survival. It's a job, and it's putting food on their tables. Dejibatmo, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
Now, in the third installment of our Social Startup Africa series, we're going to be taking a look at a social entrepreneur in Rwanda who's trying to bring clean water closer to communities, particularly community schools in East Africa. Venusta Kubimana started a water kiosk at school program with more aims than just plain old profits and capital appreciation.
I remember we had the situation at the school when one girl, she went in her period. We both did not know what it means, but when we saw she had something at the blood on her back, everybody was laughing at her. I think she never came back to school. But if we ever went to the school, she can, clean up well, so her hygienic is not, violated or anyone disrespecting her that way. My name is Venuste. This is a drinking water station, part of our water kiosk at the school, providing clean water for the kids and for the community around the school. I was born in 1985. So back then, all of this was a village. Not many houses like this, were just like banana plantations. As you see that, we farm a lot of beans. You will see here there is only my big sister. So during the genocide, our parents passed away. We are 7 siblings. Life was really difficult since it was a village. We don't have a big farm or young people trying to find a life. She actually was like our mom. She became like our mom. My primary school is up there over the mountain. So basically, in the morning you wake up, go fetch water down there in the village, the valley, then come home. If you have some work to do for the family, like cleaning up, that's what I was doing. Then I go to school or take care of the cows. Akangaka, Kongo akakano, waza kutwara ebyiri. In the morning, always I went to school late. And, I'm going to get beaten by the teacher. Sometimes they send me away because when you come late, today, tomorrow, 3 days a week, something is wrong with you. And every day, we used to go to school with the water at the school. If you did not get small jerrycan for your family, get some to take to the school because, school also had no water. We had to carry water from house to the school, like to clean up the toilet and, because also the school was muddy. You have to spray some water to avoid dust. So everybody used to come with the water at the school. So this way, if you come late or with no water, you can have some punishment. So this really was part of my motivation to set up a water kiosk at the school. Like every morning they come here to fetch water, and the evening after school, just like, you know, how it used to be. Just same like our days, you know. We used to be here like 6 or 7 p.m. It's really nice to have everybody here praying. You go home late, come to fetch water. It's like our social hangout as a kids, yeah. Welcome to Rubugurizo Primary School. This is where we set up our first water kiosk in Rwanda. After so many years doing this in Kenya, I'm so happy that we finally got to do here in my home country, even in my province. I'm pretty happy because now so many kids in this village going to have clean water, save their energy going to fetch water after school. They can drink water during school, anytime, and everybody here now has clean water. So this tap is actually like what we call like plug and play. So you don't need to assemble anything from here. So you come with the whole this station. We normally use pipelines to bring here. Inside of this metal, there is a small pipe. A pipe that we connect with the main water pipeline. Inside here, at the end of inside the tap, we put a filtering system where we can be able to keep the residue that may come through the main pipe. And then when we press this water comes out, it pushes actually the residue to go back, and water comes here. It's 100% clean for consumption. The other thing about this tap is the lifespan is over 100 years old. So now people here, they are sure this is gonna last for 100 years with the clean water. Same, even the filtering system, you don't need any maintenance. Agenda.
Kubera yuko mbere twakeneraga amazi yo kunywa tukajya harahepfiramo tukanywa ibizi bibi, ariko ubu ngubu kuva yahagera umwana asiga ashaka amazi yo kunywa akavoma kuri ya riba akanywa, nta n'inyota tukigira.
Ijambo ra
amazi urabona ko yagize icyo yongera kuri bo, kuko cyane cyane ko nta nubwo babihaga agaciro ko kunywa amazi ari ngombwa, ariko ubu niba umwana umunsi amara nkaga
aragisaba ingufu se. What I would say, because for the last 10 years, I have been working with young people for us to design youth-led and for community development initiative like this water kiosk. I did not design it alone. I work with many young people to design these solutions. So what I would encourage young people is to be involved with the youth group, because alone you can do nothing. But when you join other young people, we're gonna make a difference. Like, as you see, the water kiosk, it's not me alone. Together with other young people, we're able to make this difference. So I believe togetherness, we will be able to achieve a lot.
And that's it for tonight's edition and this week's edition, really, of Global Business Africa. As always, we'd like to hear your thoughts on the content you've seen here in the last hour. There's several ways to get your thoughts back to us. All of them are on your screens right now. I'm Ramah Nyang in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. The World Today is up next from Washington, D.C.